Hey, how is everybody? Welcome to the show. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Ask Away. And as usual, I am going to be starting by answering questions from my wonderful, amazing, terrific Patreon patrons. So if you are with me in the live chat at the moment and you have questions or comments, or you were planning on being generous and donating a super chat or something like that, please, if possible, if you're going to be able to stick around long enough, please hold off on that until I get through the patron questions, and then I can turn my full attention to the live chat for the rest of the show, and I'll make sure that I don't. I still may miss your question if they start coming fast and furious, but there's at least a much better chance that I will see your question and be able to respond. So, okay, first, let's turn to the patron questions, and the first patron question this time around comes from our pal, Some Random Geek, who is currently in the live chat pushing the charity links doc, which is very much appreciated. Some Random Geek, who likes to remind folks that the best way to make profits is to reduce labor costs, says, as we all know, we have unemployment insurance. Why? In case you lose your job through no fault of your own. Why do you need a job? Most people can't grow their own food, provide their own health care, or build their own home. And there is no such thing as housing, food, or health care security in this country. The basic means of survival have been turned into commodities to be bought and sold. It is the sphere of destitution that drives people to seek employment in the first place. The threat of starvation, exposure, and death keeps people in jobs that are dangerous, degrading, or abusive. You need that shit job anyway. Now you see why all this talk of disincentivizing work from unemployment payments that business leaders, politicians, and pundits wring their hands over. People have to be close to ruin to accept bad jobs with shitty pay. Capitalism requires poverty to function. It is a feature, not a bug. Poverty is the system functioning as intended. Can't folks see it now? I think more people are starting to see that that certain conditions that we have, I think, been taught to just accept as inevitable are not inevitable and should not be thought of as acceptable. You know, I mean, there's no reason why we have to accept people living in poverty. There are certain, I think there are certain conditions that no matter what system you go to, whether you have a different form of capitalism than we have now, or whether you get rid of capitalism entirely and do a completely different system, you're always going to have people who have more than other people. There will always be a certain amount, I think, of wealth inequality. Nobody will ever have exactly the same amount as everybody else. And I'm okay with that. That's fine. That doesn't bother me. But you don't need to accept people living in poverty, you know, especially when there is so much abundance on the opposite side of the scale. Here in the United States, particularly, and other countries too, but in most wealthy countries, there is a great gap between the haves and the have-nots. And you don't need to, like, people living in poverty, people living without homes, or with homes that are not suitable to their needs, or people who are unable to pay for food or pay their bills or whatever. You don't need, that is not a condition that must exist. You know, and you can say, like, well, that's how capitalism is designed to work. I think even under capitalism, it would be possible to ameliorate those conditions. Perhaps not eliminate them entirely, but improve them drastically than how they are now. I feel like it would be possible, and I've said this recently in another stream. I think I might have said it just on Monday in the Facepalm 5 after show. It's possible to put in a floor, you know, where the floor is higher than the poverty line, and I think we can. I think we can and we should be doing that. But as for, you know, why folks can't see that they don't need to accept that poverty is not an acceptable condition, that we don't need to have, you know, well, there have to be some poor people because who else would do the shitty jobs? Like, that's not the way it has to be. Even under a more or less capitalist economic system, that's not the way it has to be. We don't need to just say, well, we're going to have some people living in poverty. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, there is something you can do about it. And we should be doing something about it. We should be doing a lot more about it than we are now. Next question is from Michael Kelly, who says, so, with the ending of Lower Decks, I can say that Mike McMahon did a really great job with what was a pretty hard task, making a Star Trek show that is funny enough for the lay viewer, but a comedy that was Star Trek enough for the fans of the franchise. I guess that means I'd consider him a hero in the real-life production of the franchise as a whole. I've been watching a lot of cast interviews and fan discussions lately, and Rick Berman seems like he was sort of the opposite of that. So who do you think are the biggest heroes and villains throughout the production of the franchise? I think we can all just agree Gene Roddenberry is probably the biggest hero, given that he invented the damn thing, although there is the whole weird sexist thing that I wish I didn't know about. For example, if you could pluck out someone's influence entirely or significantly increase someone else's throughout the franchise's history, who would you look at? What a great question. In terms of whose influence I would like to increase, I would say my hero of Star Trek would be oh no, and I completely Harv Bennett. I can't believe I blanked on his name for a second. Harv Bennett, the producer who took over the movies after they kicked Roddenberry out of a creative role, after Paramount took creative control of the Star Trek movies away from Roddenberry. After Star Trek: The Motion Picture, Harv Bennett was who took over and produced the next 4 movies, I believe, and I think he is really he is the person who saved Star Trek. He is, more than anybody else, with the possible exception of Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek, who wrote and directed Star Trek II and co-wrote Star Trek IV, and then also went on to co-write and direct Star Trek VI. I think other than possibly Nick Meyer, Harv Bennett is the person most responsible for saving Star Trek, for making Star Trek, especially the original series movies, into something really, really awesome and really special. So Harv Bennett would be the person that I would nominate as like the great hero of the franchise. I would even put him ahead of Roddenberry, because even though, yes, Roddenberry created it and deserves a lot of credit for that, not only do we have the problem of Roddenberry's sexism and his generally sort of shitty attitudes toward women, but I have long maintained that Gene Roddenberry was not that great of a writer. He had good ideas sometimes, and he created Star Trek, and he had a vision for it that was fantastic, and he made something he created a universe that you know is still with us today and is still precious to me and to a lot of people, and he deserves all the credit in the world for being the creator of Star Trek. But as a writer, Roddenberry was not that great. He was not a very good writer, and other more talented people came in and sort of put meat on the bones that Roddenberry created. People like D.C. Fontana and David Gerrold and boy, I'm just blanking on everybody's Gene Kuhn. That's another one who I was thinking of in sort of the original series era. Yeah, so to answer the question, to sort of drag it back to the actual question it was asked, Harv Bennett is who I would say for a positive influence. For a negative influence, I mean, it's for a negative influence, it's easy to say Berman or Braga, because there are definitely lots of reasons to criticize things that Berman and Braga did, especially in the Voyager Enterprise era. But, Berman and Braga also co-wrote Star Trek First Contact and were, worked on some of the best episodes of the franchise, especially in Star Trek The Next Generation, where they were both sort of very active. And, so yeah, Berman and Braga, especially Berman, did some bad things and created maybe created like a hostile work environment and laid down directives that kept especially Voyager and Enterprise from living out their full potential and becoming the shows that they could have been, or being as good as perhaps they should have been. So it's completely valid to take a shit on Berman and Braga. But I would say if I had to pick one person, it would probably be Leonard Maizlish. And Leonard Maizlish isn't nearly as well known as Rick Berman and Brannon Braga or some of the other people that might be named in this when answering this kind of a question. But Leonard Maizlish was Gene Roddenberry's personal lawyer. I mean, I think he actually was Gene's divorce lawyer in his divorce from his first wife, like back in the 60s. And he was Gene Roddenberry's personal lawyer, and Gene actually brought him on and gave him an office in the studio for the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation, because Roddenberry was paranoid that the studio would try to push him out again after they pushed him out of the movies, and he wanted Next Gen to be like his baby, and he didn't want to lose creative control over it. So he basically hired his lawyer to work in the studio with him, and that wasn't the bad part. The bad part was that his lawyer, Leonard Maizlish, didn't just operate as like Gene's representation. He would impose himself in the production of the show. He would rewrite scripts for episodes during Next Gen's first season without any authorization and without being a member of the Writers Guild himself, which is illegal. Like, the Writers Guild has a contract with the studio that if you want to write for the studio, you have to be a member of the Writers Guild. And Maizlish was not a member of the Writers Guild, and he would still do these rewrites on scripts. So and apparently pretty much everybody except Gene hated him and thought he was a very toxic, terrible influence. And his fingerprints are on some of the less well-remembered, or the less well-regarded, I should say, episodes from Next Gen's first season. I don't think he had anything to do with Code of Honor, which is the notoriously racist one, but he's been implicated in some of the other not so great episodes from TNG's first season, of which there are many, because TNG's first season is generally very, very weak. But yeah, so if I had to pick one person who would be like the worst influence, it would be Leonard Maizlish for sure. Next question is from Thinking Cat, aka Neo Normie. Why is modern Star Trek so obsessed with violence? I tried to rewatch Picard and I just can't. It's depressing and miserable in tone, and its end payoff is just terrible. Really, had they recast Picard as a younger man, it would have at least made sense. I will watch Discovery, but I think like the rest of the show, it will be a single view, unlike, say, The Nth Degree or Balance of Terror. But I at least have Lower Decks. Really, it's the best Star Trek since Star Trek Beyond, because it isn't edgy or unnecessarily violent or just sad. Well, I mean, I'm sorry you feel that way about the other shows. I will agree with you that the more recent Trek shows, Discovery and Picard, are certainly darker in tone and do have more. The action scenes in them are a lot more sort of graphically violent from time to time, and the subject matter can be grimmer than in other Star Trek shows. I think that's a completely fair observation, but I mean, it's just a matter of opinion. I guess I just see things differently than you. I just disagree with you. I don't find either Picard or Discovery to be depressing or miserable in tone. Darker, yes. Not as bright and optimistic on the surface as past series in the franchise. Sure, I'll go with that. But I don't think that it's I don't find either show to be depressing or to be miserable. But that, like I say, that's just me. But I'm glad you're enjoying Lower Decks. I like Lower Decks too. I just put up my review video of it earlier this week and gave it a generally very positive review. I think it's a really likable show. It makes me smile. I mean, I have also enjoyed Discovery and Picard. So, I mean, I do not say like, oh, Lower Decks, finally, it's a new Star Trek show that's good. Like, I have liked all of the new Star Trek shows so far, so I wouldn't say that. But yeah, I've enjoyed Lower Decks a lot. And I'm glad you do too. And I'm glad we agree that Star Trek Beyond is a great movie, because it's my favorite of the Kelvinverse movies too, and I've liked all of them to varying degrees as well. Next question is from Zach. Hi, Steve. Now that Lower Decks is completed, I have a very important question. Which of these characters would you like to guest on an episode of Stephen Stuffy? Tendy's shape-shifting dog, the dog, Badgie, the holodeck assistant, or Peanut Hamper, the exocomp? Well, the dog is the obvious choice, because the stuffed animal characters on Stephen Stuffy are stuffed animals, and the dog is an animal. But I think actually the character that would fit the best in terms of tone and in terms of just the kind of the personality of the character, I think Peanut Hamper would be the best fit for Stephen Stuffy. Because first of all, Peanut Hamper is very cute, and the Stephen Stuffy cast, they're all very cute. I mean, they're stuffed animals. They're adorable, right? So there's always a cuteness factor. And Peanut Hamper definitely has that. But also there's an undertone of like darkness to her character. You know what I mean? Like she starts out like all sort of bubbly and bright and sunny. And then at the end of or not the end of the episode, but when the episode reaches that, climactic decision point where it's like, Peanut Hamper, you can deliver the virus to the Pac-led ship and save us all. And she's like, nah, I don't think so. I'm out. And she pieces the fuck out. Like she transports herself off the ship and she's like, no, I'm not doing that. Sorry. So I think actually Peanut Hamper would be the best fit for Steve and Stuffy. But really the Badgie would be good too, but Badgie is maybe a bit too cartoony, like the style of humor in Steve and Stuffy, generally speaking, isn't quite as big and as broad as Badgie is. But I mean, Badgie would be great too. But if I had to pick from those three options, I think it would be Peanut Hamper for sure. Next question is from Rick Dance, who says, if Democrats take the White House and the Senate, do you think we will pack the court? Should they? I am of two minds. There is no rule that states that the court should be 9 justices. It is just an established norm upheld by simple legislation. Just like Republicans established a norm by refusing Obama his Supreme Court pick because it was an election year, by violating that norm, they are in essence packing the court themselves, though the ability to do something doesn't make it right. I am hoping that the threat of it, along with falling poll numbers, will lead to Republicans postponing the confrontation, somewhat similar to how FDR's plan was stalled. What do you think? I have gone really back and forth on this, and I think I have come down on the side of I think they should pack the court. And I've talked about this in past streams. I think somebody asked this question in the last Ask Away, maybe, but I know I've talked about it recently, and I've vacillated wildly because it's yes, they could pack the court and overcome the conservative majority, but then that sets a precedent where if the Republicans gain control again, they can just go back and do the same thing. And then it bounces back and forth. And somebody said that, I think somebody on Twitter said, and eventually it'll be like the Supreme Court will be like the Galactic Senate in Star Wars. It'll just be, thousands of people. And so I'm cognizant of that possibility, but I also feel like, the Republicans got here. The Republicans were able to assert the level of control that they have by being bold, by taking chances, by being willing to set aside norms and say, fuck that, we're going to do what we want. And that's not always good. And I don't think the Democrats should completely emulate that behavior. I do think there should be norms. I do think there should be a framework that everybody agrees on and is respected instead of just constant escalation. But I think in this case, a bold move on the part of the Democrats is warranted and is necessary. So I've kind of decided that I think if Biden wins and they take control of the Senate and they decide to add seats to the Supreme Court, I think I'm okay with that. I think I support that. Yeah, but there's reasons to come down on the other side too. David Colby, did you have Pac-Leds being actually a scary, dangerous enemy on your 2020 bingo card? Because I sure didn't. But now for the real question. Assume Trump doesn't die from COVID. Darn. What freak accident would you prefer to rid us all of this meddlesome president? Triple lightning strike while in a speech? Hit by 5 trucks? Weirdly accurate pinpoint micrometeorite strike? Pan-dimensional spiders? Boy, really. I like that. Save some of this for the books, man. Save some of this for the books. Being trampled to death by a migrant caravan? How about that? So, I mean, have one of his fearful prophecies actually come true. Yeah, I don't know. The lightning strike is good. I mean, can we just say have him catch COVID again? Because I mean, that was really fun the first time, except for the fact that he recovered. I don't know. I would love to see a pan-dimensional spider. Is that like from like in the giant spider invasion, where some kind of portal opens and just the spiders start coming? Or like, would that be the pan-dimensional spiders? And like the great big giant spider would just sort of eat Trump. Like it eats the guy, the like farmer guy in Giant Spider Invasion. It just like pulls him up into its jaws. That would be a great fate for Trump as well. I could totally see that. I would. So yeah, maybe pan-dimensional spiders. But the truth is, really, no matter what happens, no matter what it is, like whatever freak accident happens to take Trump out, if indeed that does happen, like, you know, I'm completely okay with whatever it is. Next question is from Jacob Monroe. Oh, this is an easy one. This is a layup. Should Joe Jackson be in the Baseball Hall of Fame? Yes. Yes, he should. Absolutely. Yes, he should. He was one of the greatest players of all time. I completely understand the reasoning behind keeping Shoeless Joe and the other members of the 1919 White Sox out of the Hall of Fame. Like because baseball decided after that, after a team was found to have thrown the World Series, the organization of Major League Baseball decided that gambling on baseball was going to be the unforgivable sin. And so they were banned for life. And I get that. But, I mean, it's been 100 years now, and Shoeless Joe is long dead. And I don't think putting him in the Hall of Fame would send the message that gambling on baseball is okay at this point. I don't think that's the message. I don't think people would be like, oh, they inducted Shoeless Joe, I guess we can start betting on the games again. I just don't think that would happen. And I think he certainly deserves to be in the Hall of Fame just based on the quality of his play. And I think, and I'm not a Shoeless Joe scholar, but I believe, other than the 1919 Black Sox scandal, he was not a man of bad character, at least as far as we can tell. Like, I mean, Christ, Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame. And yes, he was a fantastic player, one of the greatest players who ever played. But he was an asshole. I mean, he was a monster. He was a horror of a human being. He was awful. And he's in the Hall of Fame because supposedly, well, it doesn't matter. He was a good player, and the Hall of Fame is for honoring the great players. Okay, well, Shoeless Joe was a great player. So let's honor him and put him in the Hall of Fame. If that's if that's going to be the standard. And again, except for the Black Sox thing, it seems like he was a much better dude than Ty Cobb. So yes, I think he should be. Isaiah Taylor. So Steve, I know you said you don't like parties. Okay, how about this one? It's my 30th birthday, and we are in 10 forward on the Enterprise D. It's a 90s party, and Starfleet officers in uniform are dancing to hits like Montel Jordan's This Is How We Do It, and Ice Cube's Bop Gun. We have birthday cake, Coca-Cola, and pepperoni pizza. I had to pay a Ferengi an extra wad of gold-pressed latinum to be the DJ. A Bajaran who looks like Cito Jaxa tells me, is this what you humans call a bitchin' party? And I'm like, well, duh. We have Bolians, Bajorans, and other alien races getting jiggy with it, hanging on the ceilings are birthday trimmings and models of 20th century space models like the Mir space station and the Hubble Space Telescope. Some rowdy young Starfleet officers were trying to show a certain android how to use a bong. A Dabo table is set up on the far side of the room. Pretty cool party. Would you come? Absolutely. I would totally come to that party. Yes, of course I would. I mean, yeah, I don't like parties, but like a party in 10 forward with a bunch of Star Trek people there, and you juiced it even more by saying like, and there's models of like 20th century spaceships hanging from, like, come on, that's totally my jam. And making it a 90s party, so you're kicking like my nostalgia bone as well. Like come on, shit. Yeah. Yeah, I would totally go to that party. For sure. Next question is from Eric Byer. How do you think Jacques is doing? We haven't seen him since the pandemic. Is he keeping safe, maintaining social distancing, wearing a mask, etc.? Or did he get himself exposed at a Trump super spreader event? If so, is he well? I have no idea who Jacques is. Am I just completely? I've blanked or nearly blanked on several very important names to this point in the stream. I almost forgot fucking Harv Bennett, for Christ's sake, and I almost also forgot Gene Kuhn. So, like, you know, Mr. Star Trek nerd, I can't remember two of the most important writers and producers in the history of Star Trek, unless it's on the tip of my tongue. So maybe I'm just completely blanking on something that I should know, but like, I don't know who you're referring to when you say Jacques. So, and if anybody in the live chat knows, and you want to say, "Oh, Jacques is this is who Jacques is," you dipshit. Like, you know, I'm open to being corrected, but like, I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know who Jacques is. Next question is from Nonstop Pop, who says Starfleet is made up of a wide variety of different species. From John Brockman in the chat. Do you think he means Pierre? Maybe. And Radical Bacon says Jacques is Stuffy's nephew. Is he? Oh, you mean Joff? Jacques? No. Okay. Yeah. Not Jacques. Joff. But maybe that's who he means. It's the pronunciation is similar. Yeah. No. Joff will be back at some point. If once production on Steve and Stuffy resumes, I think Joff will be back at some point, but I have no specific plans for him right now. And as for Pierre, I mean, you know, Pierre's never around. Like, that's just kind of Pierre's gimmick, is that he's not here. So I don't know. Anyway, Nonstop Pop says Starfleet is made up of a wide variety of different species from throughout the United Federation of Planets. Each would have their own unique biological quirks and requirements. Today, I'm thinking about smell. It's not hard to imagine that there are likely plenty of species for whom smell is a major part of their sensory apparatus. There are probably plenty of species who produce body odors that would be unpleasant to other species, or possibly even poisonous. Here in the real world, plenty of workplaces are scent-free due to scent sensitivities. How do you think Starfleet handles that? Federation mandated deodorant? Is every member of Starfleet medically descented upon acceptance? Perhaps futuristic uniform materials that trap and deactivate odors? I'll end on a Simpsons quote. Now, this is made from a space-age fabric developed especially for Elvis. Sweat actually cleans this suit, which is a great classic Simpsons line. Thank you for quoting it. I think it's the future, right? I think there's probably some kind of like hypo spray that they can give that is tailored to your genetic makeup, that maybe allows you to filter out whatever smells from certain species that you may find offensive, so that you're not like imposing anything on anybody else. You're not saying to a member of a certain species like, hey, you need to put on deodorant, or hey, you need to wear this special uniform, and also you're not like releasing a substance into the ship that would neutralize like all of the scents, because maybe there are members of species for whom being able to detect certain scents is really important, and they wouldn't want to just not be able to smell what other species smell like, right? So you wouldn't want to do that either. So you'd have to tailor it to each individual. So you have like a serum, or some kind of, whatever that you can give to somebody, and it will screen out certain smells based on their genetics, right? So I maybe that, I don't know. That's it's one of those things that like you have to sort of invent the headcanon for it, because they don't really tell you like what the explanation is, but it's something that that you think they would have to solve at some point, right? Because that what you're saying just makes sense. Like with the biodiversity in the galaxy, there would certainly be species that would be like that. So yeah, I think it's got to be some kind of medical thing. I would imagine. General Contact Unit Problem Child says, you said that widespread economic anxiety isn't necessarily a factor in the rise of fascism because most of Trump's supporters are reasonably well off. That's not the idea, though. Working people, worst hit by the Depression, didn't support Hitler. Middle class people supported him because they were afraid of those. They were afraid those people would vote in communists if they didn't. Don't you think something similar happened in the U.S.? Obama ran a progressive campaign because that's what people wanted to hear after the recession, and because of that, the right-wing media spent 8 years fear-mongering about socialism. At the end of those 8 years, many young progressives were dissatisfied with Obama and started calling for real left-wing change. I don't think people voted for Trump because they had economic anxiety. I think they voted for him because they were afraid people who did would vote in a socialist president who'd let in all the Mexicans and turn their kids trans. P.S. And then that's a link to a video that General Contact Unit Problem Child suggested for a future Stephen Stuffy riff episode that I think I'm going to have to take a serious look at because it's a really, really fun video. I think you make a good point. And yeah, I didn't really think about that when I was answering the question last time. You do sort of come at that from an interesting angle that it's not specifically like personal economic anxiety. It's fear of what the result of economic anxiety from other people would be. I think that's a good point. I don't know. I'm not sure what else to say about it. I'm not sure what else to say about it other than I think you have a good point. I think, generally speaking, whether it's economic or racial or social or whatever, I think a very, very large portion of the support for Trump and the what allowed Trump to sweep into the Oval Office last time was backlash against Obama, whether it be economic or something else. And part of that, I'm sure, was fear of socialism, was the fact that progressives were like, okay, Obama, 8 years, great. Now let's push for real change. I think that was part of it. And also, I just think a lot of it was, what you say in your question, the conservatives, the right wing, spent the entirety of the Obama administration lying and fear mongering and whipping up, their base into a frenzy and telling people, they're going to take your guns, they're going to take away your health care, or it's going to be government-run health care, they're going to destroy the country, it's going to be unrecognizable from the country you grew up in. And I think it was a backlash against all of that. And, different people were reacting to different things. But I think that was a lot of it. I don't know if that was all of it, but that was a very large part of it, I think, for sure. Michael Hanwine, what are your thoughts on the Red Mirage scenario that seems likely for election night, i.e. because 52% of Democrats indicate they are voting by mail versus only 20% of the GOP, and because it takes 3+ weeks for all mail ballots to be counted, election night is going to look like a slaughter because 80% of GOP votes are counted that night versus only 48% of Democrat votes. Do you think this is the end game for the GOP pushing the mail-in votes are fraud angle? So in a bunch of elections that initially looked like GOP wins are announced blue days or weeks later, the GOP can yell foul and try to keep the ballots from being counted and steal a bunch of elections. I'm not just talking about the presidential election here, but also about the all-important Senate elections. Once upon a time, I'd have dismissed this as conspiratorial, but 4 years of the GOP openly flouting everything and the Democrats just letting them has made me pretty pessimistic. I mean, it's pessimistic, but it's not unrealistic. I think it's not, yes, maybe a few years ago it would have seemed conspiratorial, but now I don't think it is. I mean, you look at what's happening in California, where it's not just a few people who are sort of acting on their own. It's the state Republican Party of California that are putting out phony ballot boxes. And they've been told about it. I think the Board of Elections or the courts or somebody told them, hey, that's illegal, you can't do it. And they said, well, we're going to keep doing it. They are openly committing election fraud. And when people find out about it and call them out on it in public, they say, yeah, do something about it. So, I mean, it certainly seems like all bets are off. And yes, of course they're going to try. If it seems like that's what's going to happen, if it seems like that early on, the day of the election or election night, it seems to look like a Republican victory, of course they're going to try to throw out those mail-in ballots. My God, yes, of course. Of course they are. Now, I don't think it's going to work because, I mean, unless it makes it all the way to the Supreme Court and the court is just that crooked, and just says, well, fuck it, we're going to rule in Trump's favor no matter what, whether the facts are clear against him or not. Unless that happens, I mean, only Trump and his most diehard true believers seem to be accepting the narrative that mail-in ballots are rife with fraud and that the election is going to be rigged or the election is going to be suspect. The result is going to be suspect because of mail-in ballots. That doesn't seem to be a widely held belief among people in the political sphere, and certainly not among election officials. So I don't think their strategy is going to work necessarily. Hopefully not. But do I think that's part of their strategy? Yes, of course. And really, it's the only shot they have, because, I mean, I'll say this: if I were a Republican, and I saw the massive voter turnout in states like Georgia, and other states that have had early voting, or that are releasing figures for like the amount of mail-in ballots that they're receiving or absentee ballots. I mean, the turnout has seemed unusually high so far. And if I were a Republican, I would be worried about that, because high voter turnout generally, not always, but generally tends to favor Democrats, which is why Republicans are usually the ones trying to suppress turnout, because they are a minority pretending to be a majority, and that the only way they can continue to win elections is to suppress the vote and to continue with that illusion that, oh, actually we are the majority. They call themselves the silent majority, and that's both of those terms are inaccurate, because they sure as hell are not silent, and I don't think they are actually the majority. So yeah. So let me see. Next question is from Andrew Priest, who says, "Hiya, Steve. I've been an atheist most of my life. Until the age of 10, I was a good Catholic, just because it's how I was brought up. I no longer worship the great god Cathol. And there has been nothing that tested my lack of faith. Then one day, a miracle happens. A prayer was answered. There was a God. Cathol is real. I'm a born again..." Wait, what's that? He's recovered? He's not going to die in the same wheezing, fearful pain that he's condemned hundreds of thousands of the people he's supposed to be looking out for? Fuck you, God, you massive cosmic jerk. I guess that wasn't really a question, so here it goes. As horrible a thing as it is, do you think certain black-hearted, hate-spreading dick biscuits like His Excellency may actually deserve to, die? P.S. No offense intended to any faithful Catholics. My words may have upset. Yes. That's the short answer. Do I think that certain people like His Excellency deserve to die? Yes. Yes. I think there comes a point when you have done so much damage to the world. You have harmed so many people's lives. You have so much blood on your hands that, yeah, I think at a certain point it's completely fair to say, okay, you're done. Now, having said that, I don't think that it is a wise decision to put that power in the hands of the state. Even though I do believe in my heart and in my mind that there are certain people at certain times who have done so much evil that it's completely right to say that person deserves to die. The world would be a better place without that person. Even though I believe that, and I certainly believe it in the case of Trump, I do not believe that the state should have the power to execute people. I can't support the death penalty. It's not because I don't think some people deserve it, because I totally do. I just don't think that is a power we should be giving the government, or indeed we should be giving. I don't think that's a legal power that anybody should have over another person. To hold it as a philosophical position, to hold it as an opinion, to say, oh, that guy's such an asshole, I wish he was dead, he deserves to die. I think that's completely fair. I don't think it automatically makes you a bad person. But I don't think that the state should have the power to execute people. I am anti-death penalty, but not because I don't think some people have it coming. Because, oh boy, because they totally do. Social justice alchemy endorses Trump's corona. I sense a theme running through the questions. Should I become an Antifa terrorist super soldier and start destroying prisons? Well, if you're going to do that, make sure you get your education first. I would say don't do that until you finish college, get your degree. Then at least you have that to fall back on, in case the Antifa terrorist super soldier destroyer of prisons gig, for whatever reason, doesn't pan out. You want to have a fallback position. So get your education first and then pursue your dream of becoming an Antifa terrorist super soldier. Okay? Okay. It doesn't hurt to be a little responsible. You know, that's all. It doesn't hurt to, you know, just to have a backup plan. So next question is from Brian Schwartz, who says, why do you think, I love this question. Why do you think Garrick was exiled? Garrick often expresses pride for his brutal role in the order. So what did he do that was so egregious that even Tane wanted him dead, and why? In the episode The Wire, Garrick tells a trio of lies about his past. At the end, he coyly states, they're all true, especially the lies. I think it's telling that all his lies involve some variation of him sparing a group of escaping Bajoran prisoners. Garrick never displays any bigotry or racial antipathy toward Bajorans, unlike many other Cardassians. And despite his strong affinity for authoritarian rule, he constantly denigrates the occupation and everyone who carried out atrocities during it. I submit to you that Garrick morally opposed the occupation, was ordered to interrogate some group of poor Bajoran civilians, and when he saw they posed no threat, he let them go rather than execute them. Tane would view this as weakness and betrayal, and neither of them would want to admit publicly afterwards. Thoughts? I think that I generally agree with you. I think in my Garrick video that I made a couple years ago, I expressed a similar position. I do think that the real story is somewhere in between the three stories that Garrick tells in the episode The Wire, right? I don't think any of those are true or are meant to be taken as true, and Garrick himself even basically says that they're not all true. You know, I think one of the interesting things about Garrick, and one of the things that that makes him such a fascinating and endlessly interesting character to talk about, is that he is conflicted. He has a great deal of pride in Cardassia, you know, like in his home, but he also is, I think, has a kind of inner moral awareness that what the Cardassians did to the Bajorans was wrong, you know, and was bad and unwise and unsound in a lot of different ways, but was fundamentally was wrong. And I think the idea of, but at the same time, because he has this pride in Cardassia and because he has this sense of duty to his home, he sees those things about himself as weak, and he tries to push those away. You know, he doesn't see his compassion toward Bajorans or his outrage or offense or distaste at the occupation as being good things. You know, he sees them as signs of weakness. And you can see that coming through in the way he tells the story to the stories to Bashir in that episode, and also in the way he when he is compelled by Tane to torture Odo in that episode in the next season, I think, when Tane comes out of retirement to lead that fleet, to destroy the Dominion or to destroy the Founders, and he is compelled to torture Odo, and he does reluctantly, and then he sits down at the table with his head in his hands because he's just distraught over what he's just done, because he didn't want to, he didn't like that, he doesn't want to be that person. He feels like he has to be. That's what he's supposed to be. That's a good Cardassian, but he doesn't want to be that person. So I think his exile is probably tied up in that. Is tied up in the fact that he did something that was motivated by his personal morals, by his heart, by his empathy for the people that were suffering at the hands of this regime that he had sworn to serve. And that was seen as weakness. That was seen as betrayal, and it got him kicked out. But of course, the other thing is I can tell, I'll give you my answer to the, it's the same thing that, like, when people say, like, oh, what do you think happened? What do you think happened at the end of Inception? Was it a dream or was he awake? And it's like, well, if they wanted you to know for sure what it was, they would have told you, if it was left ambiguous for a reason. And they left Garrick's characterization and Garrick's reason for being exiled ambiguous. They could have told you precisely what it was, and they chose not to. It's meant to be ambiguous. Next question is from Danny K, who says, "Hi, Steve. Which rules of acquisition do you like the most? And if you could write one yourself, what would it be? Thanks. Hope all is well." Thank you, Danny. All is very well at the moment. I really like, I don't remember what numbers they are, but it's the two that are back to back. The first one is war is good for business, and the second one is peace is good for business. I think that is just a really great illustration of the Ferengi mindset and what is funny about them, and also what is kind of distasteful and a little dangerous about them. That they have no preference. You know what I mean? Like, war, yeah, sure, let's go to war. We can make money off that. Peace, yeah, let's go to war. Or let's make peace. We can make money off of that. As for like what, I don't know how I could, But yeah, the peace is good for business, war is good for business are my favorites, I think. Andrew C. Hawkins says, "Do you really think that Roe v. Wade is under threat with an increasingly conservative Supreme Court? I honestly think they would rather let that and other culture wars related rulings stand to keep Christian nationalists engaged and stave off a liberal left backlash while continuing to do things like legalizing corruption and hardening property rights. This is why I'm increasingly seeing the court as a deeply anti-democratic institution that needs to be disempowered, but we've been over that before." No, I think they'll overturn Roe if they have a chance. I don't really buy into that idea that, well, they're just, they're leaving that as like a carrot to dangle to their religious right base. I think if they get the chance, they're going to overturn it, and because then they can live off of that for a while. Then they can say, we're the ones who finally overturned Roe. We're the ones who finally, we saved the lives of all those millions of poor innocent children who are going to be aborted. All these, like they can, now they have that trophy on their shelf, So, and there are plenty of other things they can still use to scare people or to, to keep their base on the hook. But yeah, no, I'm sure there are right-wing strategists who have floated that possibility, who have said, oh, let's not overturn Roe. Let's just sort of keep it just out of reach so we can continue to use that. I honestly don't think that's the idea that will prevail. I think if they get the chance, they'll overturn it. Just like I think if they got the chance, they would make same-sex marriage illegal again. Just like they've rolled back trans rights. Like they've the Trump administration has re-banned trans people from serving in the military. I mean, they could have used that as a wedge issue too. They could have said they could have come up with an excuse why they couldn't do it and use that. And as soon as they had the chance to do it, they did it. They're perfectly willing to roll back progress if they have the power to do it. So no, yes, I do think that Roe v. Wade is under serious threat. Yes, I do, along with a lot of other things. John Byrne says Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a great movie. Spoilers. Okay, so anybody who hasn't seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, just look away and don't listen for a second. I'm on a bit of a John Candy retrospective. One part of the genius of the movie is near the end of the movie. Steve Martin is remembering the good times with John Del Griffith, and he gets such a good feeling he decides to go back and talk to Del again. Here we find the sadness, but also the genius of the movie. You see, there was a great book called Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. I think some random geek would love it because the lead is someone who spends his life as a salesman, and for what? Anyway, there's a character named Arthur Singleman, and he's some hero who did sales over the phone, never door to door. Del Griffith's wife died 8 years before, and he was like Arthur going on, but we could see how real Del Griffith was. I'm not sure if they brought elements of Death of a Salesman in the movie, but John could really play those kind of characters who are comfortable in their own skin. Your thoughts? It's funny. I never really compared Planes, Trains, and Automobiles to Death of a Salesman before, but I first of all, I love Death of a Salesman. I read the play when I was in high school, and then I've never actually seen it live on stage, but I've seen filmed or videotaped versions of it, and I even have a DVD copy of Lee J. Cobb doing it, who was the original. He originated the role of Willie Loman on stage, and Lee J. Cobb is one of my favorite actors ever. He was also one of the leads in the original film, the Sidney Lumet's film of 12 Angry Men alongside Henry Fonda. And I love Lee J. Cobb so much, and he's brilliant in Death of a Salesman. But I've never really thought about Death of a Salesman in compared to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. But you're right. The John Candy character he does have a little bit of Willie Loman in him. He's not, I mean, the story of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles doesn't end nearly as tragically for Del as Death of a Salesman ends for Willie. Like it doesn't go that dark, that grim, and or that heartbreaking. But there is that element of sadness. And John Candy was good at that. I'll go that far with you. I think I spent a lot of my life not really liking John Candy because I associated him more with broader comic roles. But yeah, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a great movie. It's a great comedy, and it has a great heart to it. And I think John Candy brings that heart to that character, even though, I mean, that he's like, he's playing such an annoying character. Like for most of that movie, I am 100% on Steve Martin's side. I am totally on Steve Martin's side. I'm thinking this guy he's irritating. He's obnoxious. Yeah. I'm totally on Steve Martin's side, but he's humanized to the point by the end that you do feel for him, and you see him as a human being rather than just like a pest or something. And yeah, John Candy could play that sadness, that melancholy very effectively. And I think Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is an example of him doing that for sure. And thank you for giving me that comparison between Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and Death of a Salesman, because I see it now, but I honestly, that had never occurred to me before. Dataport Doll, evening, Steve. Just a quick shout out to my fellow Americans who, as the elite 1/2% of the world's population who get to decide who will run the American empire, please remember to vote. My actual question is easy this week. Fuck, boy, marry, kill, Pulaski, Neelix, to Paul. Sorry to all the T'Pol fans in your audience. You can split a party tray for 3 and share the leftovers with Steve. This is actually easy. A lot of these fuck, marry, kills I find challenging, but this one is fairly straightforward, and it's fuck T'Pol, marry Pulaski, kill Neelix. Nothing, and actually, you know what? I'm not like a Neelix hater, as I think I've mentioned before. Neelix isn't like my favorite character on Voyager, but I don't like. When I did a rewatch of Voyager a few years ago, I didn't wind up hating him. I thought he was, he was fine. He grew on me eventually. So, but I'm not gonna fuck him, and I'm not gonna marry him. So you're dead, Neelix. Sorry. Yeah. Vovacat17, Vladimir Kuznetsov. So I think my mother is secretly a Nazi. That's a nice beginning. She doesn't sound like a bigot. You need to dig deeper to discover her troubling beliefs. She believes in at least some form of global Jewish conspiracy, but hides it. She also has seen the world, been to places, has a deep appreciation of local cultures, but she also thinks some natives gotta stay isolated as they are uncivilized and destructive. She thinks South Africa was better with the apartheid, and she has been there. She visited the U.S. with me, still thinks BLM are the bad guys, but she has spent her youth in the International Friendship Club. An educated person, she will never admit she is racist. She just thinks it's the minorities who want too much. But for others, she is a progressive who has a lot of international and gay friends. I think she did some Nazi reading when she was younger and now is ashamed of the fact she liked it. How can a person who has traveled as much as she did and as educated as she is believe in those things? If only it were that easy. I mean, if only it were as simple as, well, just travel the world and get an education and you won't have bigoted thoughts. I wish it were that simple. That would be a much easier fix to a lot of these problems. I know people like that. There are people in, maybe not necessarily my family, but people in my extended circle and people that I know, that I am acquainted with, who are very much of that same description that you give for your mother, who you would think would know better, who you would think have all the tools to who would have all the tools to avoid that sort of thing. But it's, I don't, you said she read a lot she read some Nazi stuff when she was younger. I mean, even though she's consciously ashamed of it, maybe some of it's still stuck, and there are biases. There are points that we are not aware of. There are things that we are oblivious to, that that affect the way we see the world. And especially if you are not willing to acknowledge them about yourself. It's one thing if you have certain biases from your upbringing or from formative experiences or things that you read or things that you're ignorant about or whatever the explanation is. If you have certain biases about certain things, you can overcome those if you're willing to acknowledge them. If you're not even willing to acknowledge it, like you say, she's an educated person and she will never admit that she's racist. The battle is pretty much over there. But like I say, I wish it was as simple as just saying like, well, she's educated, therefore she shouldn't feel that way. I'm very, very sorry. Like I have people in my own circle of friends in my own family who are like who are like flat out racist. You know what I mean? Who aren't like ambiguously racist or racist in kind of like a complex way that you wonder about. Like I have people who I know, who I have, grown up around, etc., who are just flat out racist, N-word saying racists, right? And it's the worst. Like I hate it. And I hate that for you. I mean, it doesn't sound like your mom is quite at that level, but it's the worst because that's your family. I mean, you may not be you may not be in a position to just cut them off, or you may not want to. Yeah, it's the worst. And I mean, thanks for sharing that, but I'm really sorry to hear that. Question from Angus. So with the possible exception of DS9, and I do say possible as its use of religion swerves hither and thither, why do you think Star Trek has struggled to integrate faith into the series in a non-patronizing way? I would argue that both B5 and Battlestar new series did a much better job of allowing it to be there in characters' lives as lived, but then bringing front and center when needed without undermining the previous faith. Yours from a faithless human. I think some of that may have been Roddenberry's influence, because Roddenberry, when he conceived Star Trek, part of his idea for how humanity would be in that future is that essentially humans wouldn't be religious anymore. And so you don't really see much overt religion from the human characters in Star Trek for a lot of the run. You see religion from other cultures, from aliens, and sometimes it's presented as a positive, like Deep Space Nine. Sometimes it's often presented as a negative, or as something that is a source of ignorance or superstition and is sort of holding people back, which is true. Religion does all too often does play that role in our lives and in our culture. It does. Certain religious institutions, certain interpretations of religion or types of religion do try to steer people away from science, and toward superstition. And that's a completely valid observation and an important observation to make about religion and how it works. But there's another side to that as well. There are ways of incorporating religion into your life in a way that is positive and that does not warp your view of reality so much that you find yourself denying, obvious scientific facts or using your religious faith to justify mistreating people or things like that. And yeah, Star Trek hasn't always been good at that. And I think a lot of it maybe is just because Roddenberry himself was an atheist or was anti-religious. And that just sort of became a norm in terms of how 23rd and 24th century humanity was depicted. And I mean, really, it's only relatively recently that we've started to see human characters in Star Trek that have indicated that they may have some personal religious belief, like Captain Pike in Star Trek Discovery. Seemed to be a Christian of some form, or at least a religious believer of some form. You know what I mean? And it didn't come up a lot. It wasn't something that became something that he talked about in every episode or was referenced. I think it may have only been referenced in one episode, but it was established as, this is a part of his background. This is a part of who he is and where he comes from. And that's relatively unusual for human characters in Star Trek. So it's taken a while, but maybe they are finally sort of starting to figure out how to depict people with religious beliefs in a more multifaceted way. And I mean, I hope so, because it is for better or worse. And as an atheist, I would say a lot. It's a lot for the worse, but not entirely. It's also sometimes for the better. But for better or worse, it is a part of the human experience that, if Star Trek wants to depict that human experience, and to have something to say about it, it should be included, and I just ripped out one of my earbuds and now I'm putting it back in. So yeah, I do think that it's something that hopefully they'll continue to refine and find their voice about. And final question from Radical Bacon. Did I make it in? Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well under the wire, actually. I think you submitted your question and there was maybe 10 or 15 minutes to go before I closed the form and started the show. So in fact, you made it in, and I was kind of thinking there might be a couple more of the stragglers that would submit questions before showtime, but nobody did. So yes, you made it in, and you were the last one. So congratulations. And now it is time for the live chat. So let's see what people have to say here. Get my patron questions out of here. Yes, I was wrong. Dana says, Steve thought there would be more questions. I was wrong for sure. Bryn Poo, what was it? Bryn Poo KC, what did God need a starship? Wasn't that a question last time? What did God need with a starship? I thought that was I'm pretty sure that was a question last time. Because he didn't feel like doing it himself. Oh, Deralta Trekkie. Oh, this is an easy one. Was Lee J. Cobb better than Dustin Hoffman in Death of a Salesman? Yeah, absolutely. Fuck yes. Lee J. Cobb was amazing. Dustin Hoffman was fine. Dustin Hoffman was nothing wrong with Dustin Hoffman in that version of Death of a Salesman. But like, come on. Lee J. Cobb was the man. He was the man. There's no fucking way. Oh, okay, you know what? Let me check my super chats. Because I've got, even though I asked you not to do this, I've gotten a few super chats during the portion of the stream. John Burns says Star Trek God, Lucille Ball, Devil J.J. Abrams. Nah. Lucille Ball I might go with because she was integral in keeping the show alive and actually getting the show sold in the first place. But Abrams, no. Abrams is not the devil. Abrams is one of the good ones. But thank you for the super chat. Another one from John who says, Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame, then put in Buck Weaver. He was the third baseman and only regular position player who didn't take money. John Cusack. Yeah, from 8 Men Out. Yeah, I'll go with you. I'll go with you there. And then a super chat from Caroline Clark who says, Steve, do you think there's something like the Baseball World Series in the year 2399? Not in Star Trek. Not in Star Trek. But I don't know. Do you think baseball is going to survive that far? I don't know. I'd like to think so. John Burns says, another super chat says, we've all got it coming to us from Unforgiven. Isn't that a great scene? Great scene from a great movie. Oh my God. Yeah, I guess he had it coming, didn't he? We all have it coming, kid. What a great, oh, I love Unforgiven. Such a great movie. And then here's one from Vovacat, super chat from Vovacat says, a public announcement time right here where I am. It is already October the 17th. I am officially 21 now, stuck with my mom on quarantine. Well, I'm sorry about that, but congratulations on turning 21. Happy birthday. Yes, Radical Bacon. Yes. And Discovery has been renewed for a 4th season. You're goddamn right. It has. Despite the fact that apparently it's always all these assholes who are constantly complaining about it, you know, and saying like, oh, it's going to be canceled any minute now. Like, okay, I really don't think so. But now there's like proof. Now there's actual evidence that, you know, that it is not canceled. Caroline Clark, Desi Arnaz. Well, I don't know. I know that Lucy was interested in Star Trek. I think Desi might have been out of the picture by that point, but I'm not sure. Maybe. I'm not sure if Desi Arnaz had anything to do with Star Trek or not. Harry Garrison, how about Pete Rose? Yeah, absolutely. I think Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Deralta Trekkie says, could Eamon Maritza and Elam Garrick have been good friends? Both apparently have the same MO. That would have been interesting to have those two characters together. I don't think they ever were. Obviously they weren't like on camera, but I don't think, because Maritza was killed at the end of Duet, so yeah, that never would have happened. But yeah, I think they certainly would have had some shit to talk about. Caroline Clark says, I've got to clean out my hamper. There are too many peanuts in it, right? Don't you hate that problem? I hate that problem. 255 AD, did you actually watch the AD 1999 thing? No, I did not yet. I'm going to watch it at some point, probably this weekend. I watched a little bit of this, the first minute or so, and I thought, oh, this could be something, but I didn't actually sit down and watch the whole thing. But I'm going to. Another super chat from John Burns, thank you very much, says, nice softball question, Radical Bacon. Yeah, I know, right? You like to have a few of those. 255 AD says, Pence has wanted to be president since he was like a teenager. How funny would it be if Trump dies and Pence gets to be president, but for like 3 months as a lame duck? Honestly, if that's the way Mike Pence gets to become president, that's the only way I could possibly accept it. Yeah, let him become a lame duck president. And Vovacat says, for everyone to hear, I do not hate my mother. She rarely talks about what I said she believes. I am not even 100% sure. She is a monarchist. So yeah, let's not throw Vovacat's mother under the bus or anything here. He's just sort of sharing and maybe venting a little bit. Pedro Nagura, what other insect should be landing on Mike Pence's? I'm so sick of the fly stuff. I'm so sick of the fly jokes. Like, good Lord. I'm I'm just done with the fly jokes, man. I'm just done with them. Like, I don't know. I don't know. What's like, I don't know. I'm just done with the fly jokes. Like, you know, Jordan Joan P says, "Hey Steve, what do you think of CW's remake of Swamp Thing? I have not seen it, so I can't say." Alistair Clark says, "Early Discovery season 3 thoughts. I loved the first episode. I didn't think that. No, Pedro, you're good. You're good. I'm just over the Fly. I just feel like we've talked way too much about the Fly. Like, but nothing. You're good. Yeah. I thought the first episode of season 3 Discovery was terrific. Yeah. Uh, 255 AD says, "Do you think interracial marriage is under threat? Eli and the gang suggested that the other day, but I feel like it'd be a bridge too far even for this court. Am I being naive? I hope not. I mean, look, I think it's entirely likely that, like, all bets are off. I don't know if anything is safe. Would you put it past these people? Like, would you put it past these people to to not do that? Like, I don't think I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't say that that's definitely going to happen, but I wouldn't put it past them, like, at all. The killer hornets, I guess, for the bug on Pence's face, the killer hornets for sure. The Trask Largaro, the Dred Scott decision might be safe. might be. They're out to Trekkie. What's your favorite sci-fi show besides Trek? Mine are Stargate, Automan, Sequest, and Knight Rider. Well, if we're counting Knight Rider, Knight Rider's got to be way up there. Knight Rider, X-Files, something like that. Vovacat Super Chat says, oh, Vovacat Super Chat. I just made that up. How is the Badgie stuff not the most famous internet meme now? I mean, I'm going to wear your skin. Yeah, Badgie was so funny. I cannot imagine people not like thinking Badgie was just the funniest shit ever. Like you know what I mean? Like Badgie was just awesome to me. Alistair Clark, and by the way, Sage and Candle, thank you very much for the super chat. Alistair Clark, question, would a Quantum Leap Star Trek crossover be fun? Yes, of course. Patrick Wall says, you have said that canon is not very important to you. Is there a line for you where story would not override canon? I can't really I can't say anything like specific, you know. I don't think, I mean, but generally speaking, I would say story would always take precedence. Pedro Noguera, maybe a real question then. Steve, have you ever read any of Neil Gaiman's novels? Especially Love and Nancy Boys, great humor with so much heart, and African mythology is rarely so. No, I have not. I've honestly, I've read Neil Gaiman comics. I've never read a Neil Gaiman novel. Gizimpi, also excited for your Babylon 5 video. Well, thank you. I was working on it today. Yeah, I was working on it today, actually. And it'll be ready hopefully by Wednesday. Robert Mills, what's your favorite character you acted? I haven't really acted all that. I haven't acted in all that many things. Like there aren't that many characters to choose from. I mean, I really enjoy playing the version of myself that I play in Stephen Stuffy. I really enjoy playing Stuffy. I really enjoy playing Jack McPherson. So there's that. You know, I like some of the Stuffy videos. Michael Worley is fun. But like, I mean, honestly, like there aren't that many characters that I've played that I could say like, oh, that's my favorite. You know what I mean? Yes, Andrew Badgie is the new Microsoft. Exactly. Yes, exactly. He's Clippy. He's a riff on Clippy. Exactly. That's who Badgie is. He's a riff on Clippy. And yeah, I thought Badgie was hilarious. I thought Badgie was absolutely fucking hysterical. Super chat from Vovacat17. Favorite sci-fi time? I mean, Netflix's Dark, a recent show, 3 seasons, the most beautifully complicated stuff ever, but you got to go watch The Boys. I haven't seen Dark or The Boys, so I will add Ensign Johnson. Yeah, sure, maybe. Ensign Johnson is fine. Ensign Johnson's very close to myself. Some crucial differences, but generally speaking, very close to myself. Nah, Jason won't be mad if I skipped Ensign Johnson. Yeah, Caroline, I did enjoy playing Baby. Oh, actually, you know, for the most part on the show, Jason played Baby. I played Baby once or twice, and I think I played Baby toward the end when he was turning into Armus, but actually Jason was Baby for the most part. Oh, Blade, yes, thanks. I missed a couple of super chats, actually. Thanks, Some Random Geek. Blade Upton says, by the way, thank you, Blade, for your generosity. He says, sorry if this was asked, sort of listening while at work, but thoughts on the new Janeway Trek. I'm going to watch it. I think it's exciting. I think it's interesting. You know, it's you know, they're starting to sort of trickle out details about the Prodigy show, and the fact that Kate Mulgrew is going to play Janeway in it is a kind of a surprise to me and is really exciting. So yeah, I think it's cool. I'll watch it. I'll check it out. And then another one from John Burns, who says Nixon led to Carter, which led to Reagan. Biden wins, and there was much rejoicing. Does this end any and all chance for the Republicans in 2024? Christ, I hope so. Oh, Christ, I hope so. Super chat, another super chat from John Burns. Okay, writing team and casting from hell. Writers and cast who could mess up a Quantum Leap Star Trek crossover. I wouldn't even know. The people currently in charge of the DC extended universe. Yeah, nobody puts baby in a corner. Thank you, Donald Plug. I always appreciate a Dirty Dancing reference. Have you super chat from Sage and Candle? Have you tried the Star Trek Sims in Second Life? I have not. I've never played Second Life. And another one from Blade. Thank you very much. And yes, thanks to Some Random Geek for reminding that I missed that one. I appreciate that, and thank you, Blade, for your generosity. Russ Morgan, hi Steve, did you ever watch Under the Dome? It's a Stephen King TV show from 2013. It ran for 3 seasons. Very underrated in my opinion. I never saw it. I never watched it. Donald Paluga, Star Trek Mrs. Columbo, hard pass. Oh, come on. I say this as someone who is not like a fan of Star Trek Voyager nearly as much as the rest of the franchise. I'm very interested. I'm very interested just to see how it turns out, just to see what it's like. 255 AD says, how do you feel about the Federation being gone in the far future? I kind of like to imagine once we achieve a utopia, then it'll just go on forever into the future. Well, I think I like where it seems like they're going with it. There's only been 1 episode of the season so far, but I like where I think they're going with it, which is that they're going to rebuild the Federation. You know, they're going to bring hope back to the galaxy. I think that's a really interesting angle to take. Another one from Vovacat, thank you again, says you have to watch The Boys just because we need a video called How Homelander is the best modern social commentary on superheroes. He is messed up. I'm going to watch it at some point. I have multiple people like telling me you have to watch The Boys, so I'm going to watch it at some point. Daryl Lett says, Steve, how can you be an atheist and still be a happy person? I used to think most atheists were sad, eyes to the ground kind of people. My atheism has never made me feel like a sad person. I have a great sense of wonder about the universe, a great sense of curiosity and wonder about life and about my life. And the fact that I don't believe in God doesn't diminish any of that. So, and, you know, yeah, I know there are some atheists who are miserable people. And I honestly, in a lot of their cases, I don't think it has that much to do with their religious beliefs. I think they're just miserable people, just, you know, for a variety of reasons. But for me, it's never, you know, it's never been like that. My eyes are up looking at all kinds of stuff, not just eyes on the ground. Jason's here. Opinionville says, what, have you done what I ordered and watched Lovecraft Country? No, I don't take orders from you, man. You're not the boss of me. Except on the podcast. 255 AD, what have you been typing the whole stream? I've been working on, I'm typing up ideas for upcoming Stephen Stuffy episodes. Actually, I wrote the next Stephen Stuffy episode over the last couple of days. And hopefully I'll be able to shoot it in the next few weeks. I have no idea how people are going to react to it. It's going to be a big episode, and that's all I can say about it at this point. And I'm trying to plan for the future episodes as well. And I've been getting ideas during the stream and typing them up. So apologies for seeming distracted. Oh, David Colby says, I'm actually going to dissent. Don't bother with The Boys. Trite, shallow, inept commentary trading on shock value rather than anything. Well, shit. How about that, boys lovers? Some Random Geek, have you watched Legion yet? Nope. Harry Garrison, have you read the Foundation series? I have not. Tom Gone 3D says, hi, Steve, love your content. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. Oh, Radical Bacon, have you decided what upgrades you'll make? Are you going to make more official Patreon goals? I have not decided, and I don't know. I'm not sure. 255 AD says, if you wanted to have Peanut Hamper on the show, couldn't you? I mean, I'm sure you can buy exocomp models from other Star Trek fans. I guess I could. I guess maybe I could get away with it if I said it was parody. You know, I could get away with having, official Star Trek intellectual property on my show if I just said, oh, no, it's just parody, you guys. Maybe. I don't know, though. What about Legion? I'm going to watch it. I have all kinds of shows that people are telling me to watch that I haven't watched yet. I'm going to watch it at some point. 255 AD says Garrick tried to justify the occupation at a Bajaran historical conference. Yeah, that's right. He did. But I think that might be part of the whole, like the two sides of him kind of fighting each other type of thing. You know what I mean? Like he's doing what he thinks he should do to be a good Cardassian. I think it might be that. Another super chat from Vovacat who says, about Janeway, I mean, this is our Janeway, close to heart. I bet in 20 years when Sonequa Martin Green returns to Trek, everybody will be like, hell yeah. Yeah, I mean, to people who think of Voyager as their Star Trek, you know what I mean? I think, it's different than for people like me who sort of think of TNG and DS9 as my Star Trek. And so I completely get why people are super excited about Janeway coming back and Kate Mulgrew coming back to play her. Like, I totally get that, just like I would be super excited. Like I was excited when Patrick Stewart came back to play Picard. Pedro Nagir, is this the month we get that Cushing video? I would like to do the Cushing video this month. I'm not sure. I'm a little behind on some things, but, I still want to do that Peter Cushing video for sure. Taz P12 says, hey, Steve, have you watched the Beverly Hillbillies yet? How about Green Acres? I not to completion, not like, I haven't watched every episode, but yes, I've watched them before for sure. Caroline Clark, have you watched The Good Place? Yes, I have watched The Good Place. The Good Place is just a fantastic show. Absolutely beautiful. Jason says, let me get this straight. A sci-fi fantasy series with an all-black cast which focuses on America's racist past, and you refuse to watch it. I see. Hey. How dare you? How dare you, sir? 255 AD says, what about just imposing mandatory retirement ages on Supreme Court justices? That'll get rid of Thomas right away and be less of a Pandora's box than packing. I can get down with that. Super chat from John Burns, 3/5 vote for each Republican would be. Yeah, for real. Some random geek says, should I watch Lower Decks and the new Star Trek shows? I would recommend them. I mean, I don't know for sure. I can't predict if you'll like them or not, but yes, I would say give them a chance for sure. Absolutely. Secular Scholar says, what are you going to do with the extra time that you no longer are using for Facepalm 5 research and writing? Have a proper weekend. Dana, have you practiced a foreign language? Yes, I have. Just a little bit. I think I'm gonna practice a little bit more. I'm gonna do some more Duolingo lessons after the stream is over, actually. But yes, I did just a little bit to keep my streak alive, just in case I didn't get back to it. But I think I'm gonna try to get back to it after the stream is over and do some more Duolingo. Yes. For sure. Okay, so it is 7:30. I have been going for 90 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show up. So thanks to everybody who submitted questions through Patreon. Thanks to everybody who's asking questions and watching in the live chat. I really super appreciate it. Don't forget the charity links in the description of the video that are collected and maintained by our friend Some Random Geek. And also don't forget that you can support this channel by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. And if you become a patron for as little as $1 a month, you can submit questions ahead of time for Ask Away, for future Ask Away streams. That's just one of the perks of being a patron. And also don't forget, especially since Jason is in the live chat, and he'd be really upset with me if I didn't push the podcast. Like, I do that anyway, though. It's not just for Jason. It's not for Jason's benefit. I don't care. Don't forget that I co-host a couple of podcasts as a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There's Late Seating, the movie review podcast, and then there's also the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast, and the best episode of the Ensign's Log ever is up right now, and I really wish you would all go listen to it and bask in the awesomeness that is our brand new episode of the Ensign's Log. And hopefully when you listen to it, you will see what I mean. That is it for, look, why am I doing that? Go away. Get off my screen, lower thirds. That is it, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I will be back for another Ask Away in 2 weeks. I will be back later next week for a Trek Actually video, and who knows what the hell else I'll do between now and then. But thank you all so very much for watching. I appreciate you so much. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Have a great night. I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.